I do not want to make this video. I do not want to tell you about today's book. Just kidding. I really do want to tell you about today's book, and I do want to make this video because today's book is really kind of fun. It is called I Will Not Read This Book, and it is by Cece Mang and illustrations by Joy Ang. Now, this book is a lot of fun. It is about a little boy whose mom wants him to read a book, and he does not want to do it. He makes up all kinds of excuses, and he talks about all of the things he would rather do than read a book, or things that could happen to him rather than him reading a book. Whether it's being hung upside down from a cliff, or maybe a train coming at him, he would rather do that or be hung over a bunch of sharks than to have to read this book. But I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit. He ends up reading the book, and he ends up liking it too. So I'm sorry to give away the ending, but it doesn't matter if you know the ending. This book is really a good time, and I think you'll like it too. So make sure and check out I Will Not Read This Book. Sometimes people ask me why I like picture books so much, and honestly, I just do. A lot of times it's because they're funny, and I like funny things, but one of the main reasons I like picture books is because of, well, the pictures. I like to paint and draw, and I like looking at the illustrations in a book. I like to see what an artist sees in their head when they read a book, and so what they put on paper. And in this particular book that we talked about in this video called I Will Not Read This Book, I love the illustrations. And there's a couple of pages that I really like the illustrations, and those are the pages with lightning on them, because I think the artist did a great job of showing what lightning looks like. I think it's really cool to look at. And that made me start thinking about electricity and lightning, and I thought for the video activity today, I would just show you a really cool electricity experiment. And it's one that you guys can do at home because it involves static electricity, the same kind of electricity that is in lightning. So we're not going to get too sciencey grown-ups, but if your child expresses some interest in wanting to know more about this, there are definitely books and other resources that will give you maybe a better way to teach them about electricity and static electricity. But let me give you a couple of really quick tips, and then we'll just jump into the experiment, the fun part of this activity. So first thing you need to know is that static electricity is different than current electricity, because normally the electricity in like our lights, well, it runs in a circle. In order for that electricity to work, it just kind of runs in a circle. It has to make something called a circuit. Well, static electricity doesn't do that. It just keeps building up a static charge, or keeps building up electrical charge and electrical charge and electrical charge until something triggers it to release. Now, and that's what lightning is that release. It's the buildup of that electricity in the clouds, and there's a release, lightning. It's kind of like if you rub your feet on some carpeting and reach for a doorknob and, ow, you get shocked. Sometimes, if the conditions are just right, you might even see a spark. That's lightning. Well, static electricity doesn't have to just zap your fingers when you're walking or make stuff stick to you when you're trying to, walk around the house in the wintertime in your wool socks. It can also be really fun to do an experiment with. And static electricity happens when we get, well, two opposite charges attracted to one another. See, everything has on its surface a positive or negative charge. And if we can get a positive charged item next to a negative charged item, static electricity causes them to stick. Now, if it's two positives, a positive and a positive, they push away. Or a negative and a negative, push away. But a positive and a negative, those charged particles want to stick to each other. So what we're going to do is we are going to put a negative charge on our balloon. Now we're going to do this the way that probably some of you grown-ups have done, and maybe some of you kids, and that is you take it and you rub the balloon on your hair. And I'm not going to do a whole lot of it because I don't have a whole lot of hair left to be charging stuff with. But you do this, and I could stick it to a wall, and it's going to stay up there. It's not going to fall down until all that static charge is gone, or until we remove it. But you can tell if it's working or not because you can move your balloon by your hair, either hair on your arm, or if it's not sticking to the wall, you might need to charge it again. But if the hair on your arm stands up or the hair on your head stands up, you're getting a nice good charge. Now this is all fine and dandy, and it wouldn't be much of a video if I just told you I was going to show you how to charge a balloon. I wanted to show you a cool trick with static electricity. So here's what we're going to do. I don't have a sink. where I'm filming this, I don't have a sink. I have a bottle with water in it, and it has a hole in it that allows me to pour water out. And I'm going to show you a really cool thing that we can do. You see the water coming out of here? This has a positive charge coming on it. Actually, it's got both. But what it's going to do is I'm going to put a negative charge on our balloon, and when I put this balloon by the water, it is going to pull the water. And what's happening? And what's happening is the positive particles are bending to come to the negative particles on the balloon, and it's causing it to fall down. And what you can do is you can turn your sink on just a little bit. You just want a little trickle of water like that. Charge your balloon, and you can have the water bend. And it's really, really fun. And I hope you like this little science experiment, and I will see you next time. Now, in each one of these SJPL Sprouts videos, we're going to give you a tip that you can use to grow your child into becoming a lifelong reader. Now, it's nothing too heavy and too preachy and too wordy, just simple things that you can do with your child to help them nurture a love of books and reading. So one attribute that is really important for parenting is patience. And when it comes to working with your child on teaching them to love books and love reading, patience is something you have to have plenty of. Not only because sometimes they're not going to want to hear certain books or they're not going to want to have story time, but because sometimes you are going to have to read and reread and reread and reread lots of books. And that's okay. That takes the patience on our part, but that's important to do that for your child. If you are reading and rereading books, like I mentioned in the previous video, that's going to help with their retention and their dialogue. It's going to help them with their story building. But there's other ways that patience plays a role when it comes to pre-reading. When your child is first starting to sound out words, we really want to help our child, and so sometimes we jump in a little too soon. If they're struggling with a word, sometimes as a parent, rather than letting them take the time to figure it out and be patient with them, we want to jump in and go, oh, that word is this. So I encourage you, next time you sit down with your child, especially the ones that are just beginning to learn how to read, let them have a little bit more time to try to figure it out on their own. Now, if they're getting super frustrated and you're afraid they're on the verge of giving up, you jump in, help them. We don't want them to give up at this point, but we do want them to have that success when they actually do sound out a word properly. So parents, remember, it's important to breathe and have patience.